Oh, hi! This week, I'm going to show you how I put together this sweater I'm currently wearing. I very ambitiously thought I was going to get 2 sweaters done today, this one and then a cardigan with the rest of this particular fabric. This is a very fancy, very nice sweatshirt material that I was sent by my fairy god Cheryl, and I kept saving it for a special project. And then I was getting really frustrated this morning because I had a bunch of piles of cozier fabrics out and I just couldn't settle on what to work on. And I know I wanted to do something with this year, so I just picked a matching fabric and ran with it. I suppose it's debatable if this is actually a good matching fabric or not, but I like the look of them together and that's all that matters. Although in all honesty, I'm probably gonna put this in my Etsy shop because it's how I wanted it to look, but that does not mean it is suited for me. I mostly just wanted to live out a little bit of a cottagecore fantasy where I feel like most of those looks tend to be more in the warmer autumn tones, and this still feels earthy but in more my color palette. But I just don't think I'm a floral person, and that's okay. I'm learning so much about myself this year, but yeah, I don't know that this works for me, but I still really like how it looks, so let me know if it's something you want to see up in my Etsy shop, and it will probably find its home there. And I even made the cuffs extra long, so it's perfect for snuggling up with a warm and caffeinated beverage. So anyways, to make the sweater, there's nothing super special about this. I used a pattern I really like because the length is good enough for me, but it's actually a hoodie pattern that I've tweaked a couple times from one of the Tilly and the Buttons books. That was like the base pattern. I omitted the hood and the kangaroo pocket. I also make the cuffs extra long, and I made a custom collar band that I'll show you how to do later on in the video. But yeah, I got rid of the hood and had considered doing a cowl neck. There's not enough material for any of the things I used to do that. And I also just wanted this to be a little bit basic because everything is so loud otherwise. I do double up on the cuff pattern because I have very long arms, although these are exceptionally long. They almost might be good with like a little thumb hole. If I make another version, I'm gonna have to consider this. I have 4 different fabrics set aside to make this specific garment. So this was almost like the test run, even though I used maybe the most expensive fabric I've ever been given / owned, but isn't that par for the course for me? I did cut out all the pieces for the cardigan I was also trying to make today. That definitely isn't gonna happen because I wanted to use up the other piece of this fabric that was left over. So that'll get done at another time. As if this wasn't loud enough, that cardigan is going to include that lovely neon pink fleece. In small doses I enjoy it, but entire garments made of that pink fleece is a little garish for me, but I really like how I'm going to color block it in, so I'm excited to work on that. But we're staying on this track, which just has the tiny muted pink tones in it. A little easier on the eyes, I think. So since I was omitting the hood and I wanted this to sit a little bit more open, I did trim the neck hole a little bit on the front and back. I made sure not to mess with the shoulder seams though, because that's asking for trouble. So I just kind of like tapered it down a little bit here and then same on the back. So it sits a tiny bit lower than it would otherwise, which I really like the fit of this, man. Oh, I can't wait to make more. I want to have a closet full of these. Can't wait. So then I used a zigzag stitch to sew the shoulders together. I then serged. I basically serged after each sewing step, and I even changed my serger thread for this because I had white before. Thank you so much, Past Me. I am so glad that was the choice that we made. Once the shoulders were together, I opened it up right sides up and laid the whole thing flat, and then I took the sleeve piece and laid it right sides together, both sides obviously, on the arm curve, and then I did notch the center of the top of the sleeve just to make it easier to line up with the shoulder seam. Then I stitched that and serged it. Oh, and I made sure that the shoulder seam was aiming towards the back. I mean, that's also how almost everyone instructs you to do it, so I try to make it a habit. Once the sleeves were attached, I folded the shirt right sides together front and back, and then the sleeves were also folded in half. So then I made a point to pin the armpit seams, so where the 2 different fabrics are meeting, I pinned the front and back of that seam together and like really tried to line it up nicely because it's very noticeable if the seams are off. I think I did a pretty alright job. Doesn't look too hinky under there. Then I sewed all the way from the wrist, almost called it an ankle, to the armpit, all the way down to the bottom of the side seam. For me, this is my favorite seam to sew together because it turns it from just a flat 2-dimensional object into something you can actually put on and try on. It feels the most transformational as far as tops go. Once that was stitched and serged, I then laid it flat once it was right sides out, and I used this little spinny wheel tool to measure it, but you can use like a soft measuring tape. I have a flexicurve that I use sometimes. You can pull it and hold it up to a ruler, though that will stretch the seam a little bit, and I was trying to avoid that. I just line up where the 0 is, roll it across, and then count how many times it passes that. And obviously if there's any inches either side, I just account for all that. So it hit the mark a 3rd time exactly as I was ending. So it was about 24 inches. Then I had just enough of the floral sweatshirt material to cut the neckband. I had to do it in 2 pieces, so I did have to account for a little bit of seam allowance, but this has stretch to it, so I just measured out 2 12-inch pieces. I should have done 2 inches wide instead of the 1.5 inch wide, so this would have been a little bit taller, but I also don't hate how this looks. But if you want more of that fabric showing, you want this to be a little wider, just make your band wider. Just keep in mind it's going to get folded in half, and then the seam allowance is getting taken away from that, which happens when we do this step, which is I attached both of the short ends together. So I made this little loop, then I flattened out the seam allowance, folded it in half wrong sides together, and then I basted around the bottom just to keep those 2 layers together. While I was at it, I took the cuff pieces, I also stitched those into a long tube, opened the seam allowance, laid it flat. You kind of have to like tuck it inside itself when it's this wide of a tube, where obviously the collar was a little easier to deal with. When I'm making a cuff or a collar cuffing piece like this, I feel like cuffing is a word I don't want to be using in a video. I like to baste those 2 edges together first before I attach it to anything, just so I don't have 3 rogue layers moving around, especially when it's a stretch and the 2 layers were made of this thinner material. I just like saving myself the headache. Yes, it's 1 extra step. It makes the next step go way faster, which is where I quarter everything, meaning I just mark the midpoints in a few spots on the band / cuff that I'm attaching, as well as the part it's getting attached to, and then line up those pins, and then I stitch that together and then also serge. Then you can either use a twin needle or a zigzag. This is kind of bulky, this sweatshirt material, so I didn't want to fight with the twin needle because it doesn't like going through bulky material. Again, I don't know if that's a me problem or if it's just not built for that. I have a great easy time when it's t-shirt material, but once we're into sweatshirt or thicker territory, I have a really hard time with it. So yeah, I just took some matching thread and did a zigzag stitch. I think especially because this fabric is so loud, it just disappears into it. And up around the collar, because this is a solid color, I just matched the thread as close as I could, so that also kind of disappears. And then I did a real basic hem. I serged the bottom edge, folded it up twice, and the few minutes I've had this on, it's tremendously comfortable. I don't know, but I have a bunch of other sweaters to make that maybe I just like the fit of this so much that once I make something else, I'll be okay with parting with this. It doesn't mean I'm not proud of how this came out. I really, really like everything about the fit. I even enjoy how off the shoulder it is as far as where this seam ends, because normally on me, when I'm wearing a shirt, that sleeve seam is like halfway up this slope here, which is not where that's supposed to go. I'm very broad shouldered, so this actually makes me feel like little and petite, and I enjoy that feeling. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to make a bunch more of these sweaters. I'm staring at the pile right there. I do plan to do an end of year recap, but if me talking about this fabric is indicating as to how well I've done with my no-buy year, as long as I use it before the end of the year, I'm not going to feel guilty about it. So that'll light a fire under my ass, right? Okay. I feel like we have yet again done a very fast video where I didn't stop myself from rambling, but things certainly are streamlined when I do the B-roll and the making part before I do the talkie part. It also lets me get the project done faster. So in general, it's just a shorter filming day for me, and I think I'm just able to stay on track better. Also, I finally started going back to the gym this morning. I think that's genuinely the most helpful thing I ever do for myself, is just do some type of physical activity. On the mornings, I have a really busy day because yes, I have to take time to go do the physical activity and then shower after. It just helps my head feel quieter, and I need that to focus, or else I'm not going to get anything done. All that being said, the only reason I'm even able to take a whole day to make a project, film it, and then put a video together for y'all, and also then spend a good chunk of another day editing, that's if things go to plan and I'm able to get the whole project done in one day. It has often taken me many days to put something together, but I'm only able to put that time into it because of everyone over on my Patreon. So thank you all so much for letting me do this. I can't believe I can just kind of improvise and throw a thing together, including winging a collar band, a Colorblock collar band. I never thought I'd see the day, but here we are, and that's thanks to y'all. The entire community, whether or not you're able to donate to Patreon, because there's so much encouragement and sharing of ideas and just general badassery amongst all of you, and I am certainly better for it. And I appreciate all of us bog trolls so goddamn much. I will see you all back here with another video next Friday. Thank you so much for hanging out.